Okay, so Salesforce has released a new programming language called Lightning Web Components, but it has not released any direct support to develop these LWs Lightning Web Components in the developer console. That means we cannot go and develop Lightning Web Components in the org, right? So what Salesforce is recommending using Salesforce DX for that, and in fact I believe they're intentionally not given support to develop directly on the org so that we can adopt a better we can adapt to a better practice, right? So today I'm going to discuss more about the Salesforce DX and how what are the tools Salesforce is recommending as part of the Salesforce DX, and how we can set up Salesforce DX in our local system. Okay, so let's jump in and start the demo. So what is actually Salesforce DX? Salesforce DX is nothing but a set of tools. So using these tools you can improve you can streamline entire your development life cycle. Okay, so it's also improves your team collaboration and productivity. Salesforce DX facilitates automate testing and continuous integration, and it makes your release cycle more efficient and agile. Before we are discussing more about the Salesforce DX, let's understand the problem statement. Why we need Salesforce DX, and what's wrong with the current process we are following, and what are the problems Salesforce DX would address, right? So if you see here, right now we are following a declarative development, and which also I can say traditional approach we are following. So what is the declarative development? In declarative development you would use a org to code, and take it as a developer sandbox. In developer sandbox, yeah, entire your team used to code, and to move your code from one sandbox to another sandbox you would use either chain sets or ant migration. So your source of truth is your developer box. Whatever the code resides in your developer box, that is the main. So that is the thing, that is the code would go end of the day from hierarchs, right? So that's why your source of truth is your developer sandbox. So what's wrong with this approach? The main disadvantage is your changes. If you created a one chain set, and later point your team member has created another chain set, there is a high probability that your changes are overridden by the other team members, and there is a no way you can track your changes. That is the one thing. And also if you see ant migration, and whenever you do the ant deployment through the ant, you would see first time you would see lot of errors in the last minute, right? It's very difficult and would take a lot of time to understand that errors, and to resolve it so that it hampers your release plan. It seems like Salesforce itself understand these problems now, and they came up with the better plan this time. So what is that? The second approach is source driven development. Source driven development, this approach is very simple, and we already aware of that. Maybe the scratch up concept is new, but and the concept is not a new concept. So what is the source driven development? Source driven development is simple. You develop on your org, and you push all your changes to the repository. From the next time whenever you want to uh, push to a hierarchs, or whenever you want to move your changes to a hierarch, then you push from your repository. So here your source of truth is your repository, not the your org. So even you created a permission set in your org, and if you not push that permission set to repository, then that permission set never goes to higher environments, because it's never there in a repository. So your changes always goes from the repository, right? So this is the source driven development. And as we discussed, the main what are the advantages is in source driven development. It improves, it streamlines your entire deployment life cycle. Salesforce DX improves the team collaboration and productivity, right? And it facilitates the continuous integration. Before you deploy to higher, you can run the automated testing. If that is success, then when you created a pull request, you can test your code whether it's this your code is hampering the existing code or not. So if your code is hampering the existing code, then your test results would fail and your code will not merge with the master branch, right? So we'll discuss more about that, okay, in next slides. So let's understand general life cycle, and in this slide I would discuss what are the tools Salesforce is recommending. So first understand the normal flow. So this first general life cycle, application life cycle. What we do plan, code, build, test, release, right? So plan means generally we take the requirement from the client, and we'll prepare the stories, print, and we'll do all the planning, and we start the coding. So we after the coding, then we push our we create a build, and we push that changes to the hierarchs, and what we do the testing, and if everything goes fine, then we'll release that into a production, right? So if you start coding, mainly what we need is we need a either id or text editor, so where you can go and where you can go and you can write your code. So it might need a auto completion of your code, or grammar checking. So that for that you need that one tool. So here Salesforce is recommending VS Code. So VS Code is the tool where you can write your code. So it has a plugins, so that you can it would check your spell checks, and it correct your grammar, right? And auto completion. So it has all the plugins. So Salesforce is recommending VS Code, and I'll show you how to install VS Code on the plugins. It's pretty much simple, okay. And next, what we need is for the configuration, we also need a org. So right now, don't worry about the scratch args also like a developer orgs, but there is a slight difference is there. So as of now, consider as your development, it's a org where you do the development, right? So we need a one org. And say we have to install Salesforce CLI command line interface. What it does is it synchronize, and it tracks what are the changes you are doing on the this editor, and what are the changes you are doing on the scratch. It tracks everything. So we need a now as of now we need for development we need three things. One is an editor, and second one is the org, and third one is a CLI which synchronize between your org and editor. So you can put what if you done the changes on the editor, you can pull that changes from editor to you can push that editor to your org. If you done any changes on the editor, you can pull that changes from the org to editor. So that changes are tracked by command line interface, okay. We have to install these as well. I'll show you that one, okay. And once a development is done, then you need a version controlling system. So Salesforce is recommending GitHub, but you can use any, and CI/CD tools, right? So continuous integration, continuous delivery to for the automated testing, and to build your package or your source code. And we need a you might need that different sandboxes for QA and user acceptance testing, right? And after that everything testing is fine, then you will release your code to the production. So this is our life cycle, and we'll discuss most part here, how we use VS Code and the CLI, and what are the commands, and how more about the scratch arcs. So what's the difference between scratch arc and normal arc? Okay. So what are the scratch arcs? Scratch arcs are I can say is a temporary arc for the development, and it's a ephemeral. Ephemeral means it has a expiry date. You can it can be destructible. That means it can be only used till it got expired. Before that, if you want, you can create the scratch arc, or if you want, you can delete the scratch arc. So generally what we do is, whenever we take up any task, then we create a fresh scratch arc, and there we do the all the changes, and we pull those changes into your local repository, and you push into a main repository. Then we delete the scratch arc. And if you are in your team, if there are 10 developers, each one would have one scratcher. So it is like a dedicated to a single person. Scratcher is dedicated to a single person. Not all your team members work on the same scratcher. Scratcher should be worked by single developer, dedicated to a single developer. So that is the main reason. To create a scratchers, you must need one developer. Using that developer, you have to enable DevHub option there. You have to enable DevHub settings. Then only you are able to create scratch arcs from the developer, right? So based on the edition you are using, you will have different features for creating the scratch arc, that we'll discuss next slide. So the key benefits of using the scratch arcs is, if you see, since it is dedicated to a single user, there is a very less there is no lesser no minimal chances that your changes are overridden by somebody else. Okay. And the major one more important thing is, the creation of this scratch arcs can be a configurable. So whatever the way you want, you can that way you can create the scratch arc. By default, scratch arc will not create any custom data, or custom will not with the custom components. So it never created with your custom components, right? That means it gets the default is, it only have the standard components. So it does not contain custom classes, and custom objects, or triggers, workflows, dashboards, tabs. So nothing at all. It won't even data also it doesn't have. Only standard objects only it contains. So it's a very simple arc, with the very lightweight configuration, right? So but if you want, you can still you can give the preferences and the settings, so that with that preferences, we can create a scratch arc. It's a configurable. So what are the key benefits? It improves the productivity, and team collaboration, and DevOps automation. Okay. But the team collaboration, DevOps automation, I don't think directly comes under the scratch arc. Let's move, as I said, based on the edition you are using, you will get the respective features. So if you're using any trial version or pre-release developer edition, then you will get a 3 active scratch arcs, and daily you can create 6 scratch arcs. For enterprise edition, it is a 40, and daily it would be 80. Unlimited edition and preference edition, 100 active scratch arcs you can have, and their daily limit is 200, right? Okay. So as I discussed, if you see, these are the objects, by default it will not come with the scratch arc. Custom object, fields, indexes, sample data, and dashboards, workflows, pick list, profiles and permission sets, apex classes, triggers and pages. So whenever you create a default scratcher, these things by default it never come. Without these, your scratchers gets created. But if you want, you can configure, and if you want permission sets, then you can configure the permission set. So whenever when you create a scratcher with the permission set, that scratchers gets created, right? So how we can set up a Salesforce DX? So first we need that developer org, and in that developer org you have to enable this DevHub setting so that you can create a scratch logs. And as I told you, we need a Salesforce command line interface which is synchronized between your developer org and your editor. So we need the command line interface, and now as I said, Salesforce is recommending Visual Studio. So we are going to install this VS Code as well. And in the VS Code we need to install few plugins, Salesforce extension pack and lightning web components. If you done all, then you are ready to start development using Salesforce DX, right? And the most important thing is not this installation part. Then there are the commands which you use or which you understand to to create the project, or to push the changes, or to pull the changes back. And also the important is the project structure. uh, Salesforce DX follows a different project structure, so I'm going to discuss that is the major thing. And this installation part I'll give a less preference, because you can it's directly you can I'm believing that you already know how to sign up for a developer edition. And the command line interface, it's you have to go and you have to download the command line interface or Visual Studio code, and it's download the execute file and click on next. So these are pretty much simple steps, so I don't want to spend most time, or I don't want to waste most time on this. Okay, let's go jump